Welcome to this video on how to study for English, particularly high school English. This is only going to be a short video because a lot of these strategies depend on what you need precisely, and you should be changing these strategies according to your own needs. There isn't really one size fits all for English study, and that will be clearer as the video goes on. The first point that I want to address is related to that, which is in English, the most important factor is skill, much more than knowledge. Knowledge is a prerequisite for you to become a good English student, but to become a great English student, you will need much more skill. The first point I would recommend is to reread texts in their entirety at speed. This is important to keep the text keep yourself familiar with the texts, and here you're not really rewatching them for pleasure. You're rewatching them with intensity, looking for those memorable parts. When you're looking for examples in texts, you're not necessarily looking for the best technique. You should be looking to evaluate what's memorable and then use your skill to unpack why that's memorable and what the meaning is associated with that. I would say this one's a good starting point, but it's probably not the most efficient. This won't be your end point for studying English. The second strategy is to practice writing. I would say there are really three kinds of writing, but only two of them are really useful in your study of English. The two useful are timed writing and comfortable conditions writing. Timed writing, you're aiming to replicate the context that you'll be performing for your HSC examination or your trials, or maybe it's just a general assessment task exam. So look at how long you'll have to write for each section or each essay or each piece, and then use that as your guide. Practice under those conditions so you're familiar with them, so you can increase your comfort, so you can increase your knowledge and know beat by beat where you kind of need to be with writing. You're practicing the skill that you're going to be performing, and to me that sounds optimal. Another condition is when it's comfortable. Here, I would say aiming for about double the time that you have allotted for that particular piece. As well, in comfortable conditions, you can have the text out, you can have your quotes, you could have notes for your writing, or maybe a pre-made scaffold where you have, in this paragraph, I'm addressing these points with this terminology. That would be a comfortable condition writing. As a bonus, there is a third type of writing, but I wouldn't say that type of practice is valuable for your study of English, and that is the extended prolonged writing, where over multiple sessions you will complete maybe parts of it. There's going to be a significant amount of editing in your writing. There might be proofing, there might be a bunch of different processes. But in English, when we're thinking about studying and when we're thinking about performance, it unfortunately is going to be these two, which are the one-shot types of writing. The third strategy here is to provide feedback on your peers, on exemplars, or on your own writing after a delay. Here, what's important is not the feedback that is going to be given to someone else. It's about the process of being able to identify features of excellent writing and how an imperfect piece can be improved with specific feedback on language, structure, any of those things. I said you could provide feedback on your own writing, but this does need a substantial amount of time after you've finished composing it. So you take away some of that bias because you're already going to be familiar with your language and your intentions. And I would say 2 weeks is about enough time you need for something to fully leave your brain in terms of the phrasing and what you were trying to achieve in the piece. This feedback could actually be given to the person, specifically if it's a peer, but that isn't the highlight here. The highlight here is the process. My last recommended study strategy is to look for English in the wild. English in the wild meaning English that pieces of writing that have been composed for an authentic purpose, something that's not made for the classroom specifically. And you're not just looking at great texts to admire them or to find additional information. Here you're looking to find authors with a style you would like to replicate in some way. And when you're reading it, you are looking closely at the phrasing, the terminology and vocabulary, the sentence structure, paragraph structure, how they introduce chapters, those sorts of things. And you're trying to amplify your own style by standing on the shoulders of the greats. And there we are, 4 great study strategies for English. Not necessarily in any order of value or efficiency, but all having their own place. To return to my point at the start, studying for English doesn't have any really spectacular methods. To me, the one that's going to be the most value is to practice doing the thing that you're being assessed on. After all, English is all about your personal expression through language, particularly through written language. I'd say 80-90% of English is being able to express yourself with writing. So the thing that you're aiming to improve in English is skill. These are some of the things that you can do to amplify that skill to make yourself an even better student of English. Okay?